normal lutu ye de koye nyina no a Nigeria for de no and as say omo ka ho asem na because Nigeria for na atwere ho letters e de konti omo de e koma wo omo and omo saji Benin for so de aka ho nti se say ya no Ghana de ya dwene kra nyanko ho nti ye de obia nka ho hwe meanwhile no ye pa no free gold free asase so gold omo di free hodom koye nyina da so go omo fan ko ba bia omo di akohye omo warehouses a ye behwe ni nyina video ha I know so hoye tourist areas amanfo ko na omo kohwe gold bars akese ni nyina ewo ho turi omo yenkoso ne hwe video no ni entie nsemo apapa yi all come.
Where he held court was the place where the gods descended from the sky and created the world. The Oni claimed direct descent from Oduduwa, the founding god of the Yoruba kingdom. And the supreme status of this man is shown by the fact that he is wearing a crown decorated with beads, a sign of his nobility and wealth.
The beads in the crown mean that this was a very high personality. The crown was certainly a composite structure. It is possible that the base was cotton woven.
Inti me no me de me pese ye hwe video nyina na ye hwe enoma omo be wie akoye ni nyina enoma omo wiaye eluti ni nyina de ko omo man mu no na omo akwaji hu sika e de aye omo tourist areas e de asisi omo museum over 50 years no afi na omo sade Nigeria fo ade e komo omo di Africa fo ade e komo omo di Benin fo ade e kwa akoma wo omo enti Ghana no de yenka ye de ho asem nti no obia adwene nya ma ye de so meanwhile no ye gold bars akese ye gold akukudam pa no sesebra akra ye golden stool no kra no da so omo ho sesebra ha e wo omo ho se ni omo ho nso de a ene baby a golden stool no e wo bia no say Ghana hiamwa nti omo famla no omo fa meboa Ghana ti wo de amu yenkoso ne hwe video de eko.
And more holes in the neck and the temple have given clues as to what function heads like this served. It has been suggested the head of Ife could have been nailed to an effigy and paraded in a funeral ceremony. But not a ceremony to bury the body of the Oni, but one that would have taken place long after his death.
Given that in the tropics there's
a normal way no nyina ya de a normal omkotwe free Africa man omkotwe free Nigeria any Benin de akodi hu sika wie nti say de omade e brom over 50 years over 60 years e be cry over 70 years enti compensation de be mo de eno de eyomo asem no e betumi abasa ombe any secret nti eno ana se eguso hwe ti de am yenkoso ne hwe video no.
Death.
Given that in the tropics there's a need for a relatively rapid burial, and given the amount of time it takes to assemble people for a major funeral, there oftentimes were second funerals for nobility after their death. And in these there would be an effigy, essentially a mannequin of the deceased. The body would have been composed of wicker and then dressed in clothing, and the naturalistic head, whether of terracotta or brass, would have been mounted and would have been the visible piece of flesh, if you will, of this effigy.
But the head might also have had an added symbolic meaning.
It seems possible that what those heads were about was making a differentiation between the dead ruler and the institution of kingship. Much the same sort of thing used to happen in medieval England, where you had the actual corpse of the dead ruler and then you made an image which was displayed. and, if you like, embodied kingship as opposed to the individual king, and represented the continuity of kingship.
And after the celebration of one man's life, the head might have continued to play an important role in court ritual.
This slide shows an excavation of a shrine which took place in Ife in the early 1970s. And in the center of this pavement is this cavity where there would have been a pot for receiving libations. This would have been poured offerings such as palm wine or perhaps sacrificial blood. And it's entirely possible, given the proximity of the shrine to the royal palace, that on one of these altars at either side of the shrine, the museum's brass head could at one point have been placed next to other ancestral figures of the royal lineage of Ife. An interesting story which I heard from the excavator of this site is that while the excavator...
The small number of Ife brass heads so far discovered, just a fraction of the number of works from Benin, makes them even more valuable.
Sorry. I hear I make a wasem. So, a honomosisi hosa no intino sa bosom na omukotwe ba ye ni nyina no ene owo ho no. Inti we tourist na oba na oba ehwe bia. Utu sika ne ho no ma nti hoso omudi bebria decorate area ho no nyina kire se hoso papa. Ahaye statues ne abosom ho no ma ebinum kra ye beast no ma ye de bobo ye nsa ye de tutu ye kom ni ade ni nyina ho no bi na ye Ghana no sa gold bars na ombetwi ye ho de call ye no eno de anya ha ne wo eno so ba bi foforo enti after this video no me de eno so de ebeba enti mo me enkoso ani ehwe we say no
Search into the cultural and political history of a once thriving civilization. But already, the head of Ife has played an important role in the story of African art.
For some time, all the good things which were discovered in Africa was believed not to have been made by Africans. Fortunately, we have moved far away from that. If we consider the time when this was made in Europe, it is still Middle Age, and the aesthetics of these heads are even far beyond many things which was produced in Europe at that time.
Perhaps future excavations in Ife will reveal more brass sculptures and provide more evidence that adds to our knowledge of the civilization that created them. Till then, we can only admire a small masterpiece that helped to change European assumptions about African antiquity.
This particular Ife portrait bust is undoubtedly a great work of art. It's a work of art worthy of any world civilization. However, it's also more than that. It was a spiritual object made for a spiritual purpose. It was meant to act as an intermediary with the other world, and I think that gives this object almost a soul.
It's not only beautiful, it is clearly a masterpiece, and it has no price as a masterpiece. It's priceless.
Inti ye de besi ha ya na de inti a mi show sa video yi me pese anka se ebe ye yi a excuse me obi an share video yi na nkwa ankodru Ghana empanyifo anim Ghana politicians empanyifo anim na ye gold bars no ye gold bia ye no ma bia no a abrofo no ebedi yeso no omo twekọ ye no enye gold nko eno ma bebre bauxite diamond bibia no omo twekọ ye no omo fe ade mre so far as ya omo tumi de sa abosum we no statues we no ne no ma yeka ka ho nyina esa ade abre baabi a omo sesa free ye no ɔmo de ɔmo ade kɔm ɔmo no de yɛn so baabi bia ɔmo fa yɛ bibi kɔ yɛ no ɔmo fa yɛ ade mrɛ mepɛ sɛ at least mepɛ sɛ Ghanafoɔ nso Ghanafoɔ mpanyinfoɔ nso ɛtwerɛ saa letters yi ɛde kɔma saa aborɔfo sɛ ɔmo fa yɛ ade mrɛ ne yɛn hwɛ de yɛbɛsi tibedima no bɛsi ha ya